Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Open House. As you can see, I'm joined by Michael Brock. How are you, Brocky?
Good, thanks, Maltz. Good to see you.
Very
Good to be back.
exciting this week. We have changed up the format of it, Brocky, and I think the changes, hopefully for the consumer, you'll find this easier, more entertaining, more information from a varied sort of resource, and having your good self on board is a fantastic addition to the program as well.
Always good to be here, Maltz, and it's a very interesting program. We've got some great guests and some interesting topics for the viewers.
I'll whiz through it, and then we're coming back to you with real estate now. So you prepare yourself, because I've got some hard-hitting questions. But just to give you an idea of what's on today, real estate now with Brocky. So we're going to have one hot topic every single week, directly related to real estate. And suburb. We're actually going to delve in really deeply into a suburb. It's a pre-recorded. We're going to speak to some of the people in that area, why they enjoy living there, what's there, Brocky, whether there's decent shopping or beaches or sporting events, etc. Then we're going to allow an agent onto and this is the bit I love. It's great to get our people onto this show. This week's Paul Goodwin from
Brighton
Harcourt's Brighton. Yeah, there you go. You know your people.
Yeah, no,
he's struggling.
He's
Brighton,
a good bloke.
Down that way. Very, very good fella. Hasn't been in the industry that long and already extraordinarily successful.
Hey, with a name like Goodwin, you couldn't go
How
wrong,
could you
you?
go
I mean,
wrong?
Look at Simon on
Imagine
fire.
if he's playing footy. I don't know. We'll find out very, very shortly. He's also got a property of the week where we actually go in, look through the property, talk to the owner of the property. Absolutely fascinating. We've got the old favourite, Money Matters, with Will Chapman, of course. He loves being on here, doesn't he? What's he talking about? New credit licensing. So that'll be quite interesting as well. And then our online is we're going to go out and find a personality every week.
Terrific.
This week, Brocky?
Well, we've got Brett, haven't we?
Brett Burton.
Yeah, fantastic.
Why did he give up? Playing magnificent football, still flying high. You'll find out a little bit later on in the program. Then we move through to Google It. Interesting section. And we've got Frank Graney from Strand talking all things settlements. And then the very last one, the help desk. So we've actually had questions from you. We've got young Lucy Eckerman from Duncanbashire, Hannon, talking about quite an interesting topic. What happens when people divorce? What happens with the property settlements? And we finish up with a wrap from the great man. And that, hopefully, will be an extraordinarily interesting program, Brocky.
Looking forward to it, Maltz. Let's get on with it.
Righto, mate. Real estate now. Now, what I'd like to know, the legislation regarding the pricing strategies. So that's changed. We've had to be very transparent with the whole process, which I know you're in agreement with. Has it had an impact on the way we do business and how the consumers found it?
Look, I think it's been a bit confusing, Maltz, for the consumers. And I must say from the outset that through the Real Estate Institute, we're working really closely with the government. The legislation came in 2 years ago, and it's up for a review at the moment. And I think by the 28th of July we'll have some amendments. But the way the pricing is currently structured, if your home's going on the market, you have three options. You either put no price in at all. Secondly, you put a set price, and that doesn't matter whether it's an auction or just a private treaty. Or thirdly, you have a range. Now, the difficulty with a range is that, let's say I go and look at your house and I say, look, I think it's worth $450,000. Most vendors have a little higher expectations.
I think it's worth 800.
Yeah. But let's be a bit realistic. Let's say
500.
Yeah, that's right. We think it's worth 450. You say it's worth 500. We have to put those two figures down on the agency agreement, and then if we're going to quote a range, we have to quote the higher of those two figures plus 10%. So it means that your property that we think is worth 450 is actually being quoted from 500 to 550. So, it could be $100,000 over.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with the legislation as I see it.
Yeah.
I think what's happening is that because it's too high, firstly, vendors are finding their properties are taking too long to sell, costing them a lot more money in advertising, etc. And if they bought another property, they would interest rates, etc., as well as that. And secondly, we're finding that buyers are coming in and saying, well, this is only worth 450, but you're quoting up to 550. You're trying to mislead us.
Sure.
So in trying to protect the consumers and the buyers, it's actually had the reverse effect.
Yeah, we've put them out of the market. Now, Michael, one thing you do, that's the problem, you always come up with a solution. Have you got one?
Well, we spoke to OCBAR, the Office of Consumer and Business Rating, in the last few days, and Gail Gogo, the Minister, and they've given us a really good hearing. What I'm suggesting is that in that situation where I think your place is worth 450, you think it's worth 500. We divide it by 2, add it up and divide it by 2. That brings it to 475 and quote 5% either side of that. And that seems to me a really realistic way and a very simple way of solving a problem.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, well, it'll be very interesting to see if the new legislation or the amendments to the legislation cover off on that. Just on the other prices, no pricing at all, Brocky. We've been encouraging our Brock Harcourt's agents to put a price or a price guide in the property. How are the consumers finding having no price there?
Well, from a personal point of view, I agree with you entirely, Motts. I think that people are very busy these days, and to have no price on a property, and if you've got no price advertised and a buyer rings up, the agent can't quote a price.
No.
It's no price all the way through. So it means that if you've got in the same scenario that we're talking about, a property worth 450 to 500,000, you might have buyers coming in at 350 or buyers at $700,000 who have just wasted their time,
Absolutely.
your time, the vendor's time, etc. And as I said, in times of people being time poor, you've really got to be around the mark. So I'm a strong advocate for having a price range so that people know what they're going to find.
Yeah, I reckon 85, 90% of property, we should be able to give an indication, shouldn't we? There's always going to be that unique property that we're not entirely sure, and it's probably better that the purchasers work that one out, but 9 out of 10 times we should be able to put a price on a property.
I agree. The only question mark comes at the very top end. Once you start getting $1.5 million or more, if it's a nice little villa in Unley, you can compare and you can say, look, you're within 50,000. But at the top end, it does become difficult, and I can understand that.
Yeah. Michael, thank you. Good luck with your chats with government and whoever else you need to be talking to. And as President of the REI, you've been heavily involved with the legislation, and you've done an outstanding job. And it's for the whole way through, the REI and Brocky have been talking about consumer protection.
That's the number one priority.
Absolutely, there is. But just some little twitches and tweaks that hopefully make it easier for the consumers. Is that fair, Col?
Absolutely. Beautifully put, Maltz.
Real Estate Now with Michael Brock. Thank you very much indeed. We're going to a break. When we come back, we've got Paul Goodwin from Brock Harcourts down there in Brighton and an interview with a high-flying Brett Burton.
The Birdman.